Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. It's Chad Hyams here. Bob Stewart there. Bob, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. We're finally going to talk about something that's right in my wheelhouse. Like all this other crap we talk about, you know, like wealth and all like I'm a student of those things. I feel like this one's, well, I don't know. This used to be in my wheelhouse. Now I'm just old and broken, but let's go.
Yes, absolutely. So what you're telling me, Bob, is when we talk about health, that's not your wheelhouse. When we talk about wealth, you're a student of it. You wouldn't necessarily say it's your wheelhouse. Leadership, scheduling, all that. Bob, you got a long list. We've done a lot of episodes. We haven't been in your wheelhouse very often, have we?
There's one of my favorite comedians. I think this was his bit, is Nate Bargatze. Do you know who Nate Bargatze is? Aaron and I went and saw him recently, and I think maybe it's Bill. It was Bill Burr, but he's got this bit about like how in his marriage they seem to always be working on him. He's like, my wife is this perfect specimen in glass, and seems like we're always working on me. So maybe the Win, Make, Give podcast is we're just always working on Bob, which I'm okay with. You know,
That's really what it was. Ben and I sat down when I moved back to Washington. Ben said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Ben, you need a podcast to get your message out to people. That's why we have Ben episodes, and we get Ben here when we can still." And Ben said, "I think the ideal thing, Chad, is that we just teach Bob things and we'll make him the third on the podcast." So it's been the goal forever, just so you know.
There we go. All right. I had no idea that was the origin story, but it makes a lot of sense.
All right. So we're in Bob's wheelhouse today, folks. We're putting Bob up there on the tee, Bob. I'm setting this one up for you. There you go. On the tee for you. And it's because of something you mentioned in a recent podcast.
Okay.
You mentioned, and this is what triggered it for me, that your son is pretty good at basketball for his peers and all of that stuff. Obviously, he goes to play pros. He's going to be in a lot of trouble. Yet against his peers, and you're looking forward to that opportunity when someone better, because they've put in the work, comes along and I think you said whoops his ass. I think that was actually the term you might have used, because you want him to learn that, yes, we have natural entrepreneurial level skills, yet we need to do the work. Doesn't matter how natural Kobe was or Michael was or whatever. It was the work that made them who they are to become the greatest of all time in the discussion. And I said, you know what? There are so many lessons in the world of sports that I don't care whether it's a team sport like football, basketball, hockey, baseball, or whether it's a solo sport like swimming, cycling, track, any of those things. I just said, let's dive into the world of sports, Bob. Let's go wild world of sports here. We'll have Eddie the Eagle go crash into just as we do the opening, maybe we can work that soundbite in, or believing in miracles, whatever it is, Bob. I wanted to go and find lessons that we knew existed in the world of sports, not because we want to make our audience better athletes, because we want to make our audience better partners. We want to make our audience better leaders. We want to make our audience better salespeople, employees, whatever their opportunity is. But sports is something everybody understands, even if you don't play them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of our listeners probably have kids, right, Chad? Some of them are like me, I'm coaching these days, right? I know we've got people out there who coach the kids' little leagues or whatever. And some of us are, we're still participating, right? Like, sure, I'm not out on the basketball court anymore. I used to be able to dunk, by the way, Chad. But anyway,
sure you do.
I've got pictures. Anyway, but I golf, right? Like my wife and I have started playing pickleball recently with one of the boys.
We're taking lessons next week, which will be like many weeks ago by the time this drops. So, we might have a couples tournament.
In 5th grade, I was the Fairwood pickleball champion for my whole neighborhood. We had one in my backyard.
They had pickleball back then?
So pickleball was born in Bainbridge Island, Washington, not too far from where I live here in Washington. Okay. It was when it was in the mid 80s. And in 1989, my mom and stepdad got a pickleball court put into our backyard. It was kind of it had just blown up in Bainbridge Island 5 or 6 years prior to that. And so the first companies that were putting in pickleball courts, which it wasn't, it was just people that like used to do basketball courts or whatever, were based here in the Seattle area. So yeah, I weirdly enough, and it went away for years. Pickleball was not a thing on anybody's brain until about 5 years ago. So for a good 35 years that it wasn't a thing, but here it
Well,
came
it's a
back.
huge thing in my 55 and above community
Oh,
that I'm living in, Bob Stewart, because they don't have to run as far to play.
Chad, it's the biggest right now in the United States. Pickleball is the largest causer of injuries below the waist of like the 55 and older community. Yeah, my mother-in-law's community has one, and like I'm telling you, like every week, some it's always guys, by the way. The ladies don't hurt themselves because some old dude who used to be a really good athlete is blowing his knee out playing pickleball.
Great. Don't tell me
careful.
that. I'm training for things.
Be careful.
I'm training for a marathon. I don't need to blow out a knee. All right. So I learned something new. I did not know that pickleball's been around that long or from your backyard where it was from. Yet, Bob, we do know there's lots and lots and lots. And I challenged you to come up with some. I came up with some. We kind of had to remove a few because we both came up with some obvious ones. The challenge that I threw at us, too, was that not only did we come up with the lesson that we're going to talk about, it was that we came out with a quote that went with it, right? I want one of those quotes because someone's going to put it on their wall, right? Said by Babe Ruth or Michael Jordan or whomever we grabbed the quote from. So as we go through these lessons, let's make sure to share these motivational, inspirational quotes by these famous, probably sports people. Hopefully you didn't pick, some pickleball
I might have slid in somebody non-sporty, who knows?
There you go. See what we got. All right. So, Bob, where do you want to start? We've got 9 because I can't do 10. You know that. I eliminated and made us come down to 9. I sent you the final 9 list. Which one do you want to start with?
I just think let's just go with, to me, what's kind of my wife and I joke about this because my wife played all individual sports. And if you knew my wife and the type of control she likes to have over everything going on in her life, that makes a lot of sense. But for me, sports, Chad, was always about teamwork.
Yes,
right? Like it was always, I never played an individual sport. I always played sports where I relied on my teammates. Sometimes they picked me up. Sometimes I picked them up. To me, and look, and maybe, as I look out throughout our lives, like my wife went into a sales career where she could be an individual contributor and nobody else, you still in sales kind of have marketing and different things. But for the most part, she's in control of what she sells each month, right? And she's gotten very good. She does it at a corporate level. But I went into a world where, man, I'm really relying on my teammates around to help me increase my income and go knock off the goals that we've set out in front of ourselves. So collaboration is so important as you move into the business world, Chad. And I think a lot of us learn those fundamentals either because we have a sibling and we kind of got to work with them sometimes, or we learn it really deeply. The first place we learn it is in sports.
I think you're absolutely right. It's probably one of the first places most of us learned it because we played soccer, we played baseball, whatever the sport was that we enjoyed or our parents threw us into to burn out some energy. And Bob, I think the most interesting thing that I always think about when we think about teamwork is that you also have to have the solo work, right? I mean, a football team, to use one that probably most people understand, you've got a quarterback. Okay, he's got teamwork. He's got to communicate with his guys. He's got to have all those lessons. But at the same time, he's got to work on himself because he's got to be able to sometimes know he's got to move. He's got to be able to throw the ball a certain distance, right? We have to understand what everybody does, yet we have to also focus on those solo sports. So there is kind of that solo power within that team opportunity. The goalie isn't going and scoring goals in hockey. His job is to make sure nobody scores on him, but he's still part of the team in the communication aspect.
100%. One of the things that, like, as we put this list together, and now I'm like looking through the entire list that's not called out particularly, but I guess it falls under the header of teamwork, is that idea of like accountability to somebody other than yourself.
That's a great way to look at it.
To me, like, yeah, sure, teamwork, but ultimately at the bottom line of teamwork is that idea that I'm showing up to the team, kind of bringing my best version of myself, Chad, and I learned the playbook this week for the plays we were going to run, right? And I went out and got up my free throws or whatever, so that when I step to the line, I'm kind of bringing it for my team. So there is some of that we're relying on you as an individual to be a part of the team. But I think like accountability to somebody other than myself is a byproduct of teamwork.
That is great, Bob. If you're going to take teamwork, the two things it probably boils down to is accountability to someone else and communication with others to make sure we're on that path for that common vision, that common goal, which obviously in sports is win the game, win the championship. Yet maybe as a marriage, it's you and your partner having that accountability to each other towards the common vision and common goal of raising our children to be good adults, having enough money for retirement time, for all those things that come along with it. And for you at work, it's going to be accountability with either your leader or to your company or to a coach, and communication with everybody to make sure we all see the vision and know the path we're going on. I think you picked the right one to start, Bob. Teamwork is probably the number one lesson we will learn from sports, even in individual sports, because I will bet almost every individual sport isn't really individual.
Sure, Michael practicing with like my wife was a tennis player and she had a tennis team. She went out and individually competed, but she relied on her teammates for practice and for skilling up. And absolutely,
yeah. Michael Phelps got into a pool on his own, yet he had a coach who was there. He had a whole team of people who were with him. That even though it was just
relays,
pool,
he ran relays too, where he actually had teammates that he needed to rely on for that race. So
there you go. All right, so Bob, a quote that went with teamwork. What'd you get?
I got Vince Lombardi, the iconic Packers coach, the winner of the first 2 Super Bowls. Individual commitment to a group effort. That's what makes a team work, a company work, a society work, a civilization work. Like Lombardi's underpinning the importance of teamwork and basically saying like the entire world revolves around this concept.
Right. I mean, you couldn't have gotten a better quote to start us off and show everybody that it's not just sports related when it comes to it. All right, Bob, I'm going to go down the list here. The one I'm going to take out that jumps off the page at me is discipline.
Okay.
It's one of the things that people always say they see in other people and they don't see it in themselves as much, right? It's we don't have consistency on here. I think discipline kind of fits with that consistency message. In sports, especially the individual ones, running, cycling, swimming, there is a lot of self-discipline and dedication to show up for that practice and show up for improvement because there's nobody with you. It's not like you're showing up to that team where you've got that great leader who's the quarterback or, the captain on the team, and he's motivating and inspiring and holding you accountable. When you're doing a lot of these individual sports, discipline is required. Now, that's not saying discipline's not required. We know the story of Kobe Bryant, who always showed up hours before anybody else at the court. I think it was Michael Jordan actually who said, or maybe it was Kobe who wouldn't leave until they had sunk 100 free throws at the end of every practice. They had to get 100 in a row. That's discipline. And I think so many of our people think we can have success in our marriage, we can have success in our health, we can have success in our business just by sheer will. And willpower will always fail you. Discipline is the thing that comes through when willpower is done.
Yeah, to me, discipline's doing it when I don't want to. I'm having a lot of those, because my son committed. And I'm going to use him as a reference point here just because he's 7 years old. He is like fiercely good. He like in his head, he's going to the NBA, and so I'm like, all right, if that's your thing, right? You're 7, we're gonna start acting like it. And one of the hardest things for him has been because he committed, Chad. He said, yeah, Dad, we're gonna practice every day. And I'm like, by the way, I don't know that I'm up for it, but I'm like, okay, if you're gonna do it, like I'm gonna show up as your teammate, right? Let's go do this. But we're at the point right now where the discipline's really there. There's some days he doesn't want to do it. And we're learning discipline, right? We're like, look, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm sorry about your feelings right now. I'm sorry that your finger hurts. It doesn't matter. Like, we need to be disciplined if your goal is this lofty, crazy goal that it is. So he's learning discipline right now, Chad. I think the people that we see in our world that build the biggest worlds, Ben is a great example, but we can look in almost every direction. And I think a common thread that runs through all of these people that build big things, that live great lives, is discipline, right? They do the work that they don't want to do on the days they don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's a great way. It's also the exact opposite. It's not doing the things you shouldn't do, even though you want to do them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's maybe even more that, by the way.
I want to sleep in today. It's I want to grab that donut because I walked into the office and someone brought a box of donuts, and having the discipline, not the willpower, because it will fail you. Having the discipline that says, no, I'm training for this. No, I'm working towards that. I have to be there at this time, or I have to do these things. Sometimes it's doing the things that I don't want to do, and sometimes it's not doing the things that I want to do. I don't know how many times people are distracted. They'll answer their phone when they should be doing something, right? And they're saying, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to just take that call and hope it distracts me.
I used to, I still do this occasionally, Chaz. There's times I wake up in the morning and I will go back in my brain to I don't want to get out of bed. And I don't have to, by the way, right? But I will just take my brain back. Sometimes I'll go back 25 or 30 years to a place where I was at my peak of discipline, maybe. Yep. And I will just remind myself I'm capable of that level of discipline because I did it before, right? And so, man, you have kids and they're committing to things like nothing. I think one of the most detrimental things you can do as a parent to your child is let them sign up for a sport and then let them drop out halfway through. I'm as a coach, I see this happen all the time. Like my boys, we're not dropping out of shit. Like one of my boys, he didn't like soccer. He started it two practices in. He was like, I don't like this. I'm like, tough shit. Like we're going to do that. You committed to doing this. You got 9 other teammates, right? I think discipline, I don't know. Yep. To me, it's a common thread in every successful human that I know.
My dad was the same way, Bob. He said, you don't have to do it again next season. Mm-hmm. Yet you will finish the commitment you made and have the discipline to do it. Billie Jean King, big tennis star, right? If anybody doesn't know who Billie Jean King is, Billie Jean King said, champions keep playing until they get it right. Right? We've heard that so many different ways from so many different people about, practice makes perfect. It doesn't, right? Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? So figuring out what you're working towards and what you're working on and doing it again and again and again and again until it's right. Bob, number 3 on our list will be?
I'm going to go resilience in defeat. Okay, like you don't even have to have played sports. You could just be a fan of sports, right? You could be a Mariners fan, and year after year, you still show up next year. Like I think we could do it this year. Yeah, even though you're definitely not gonna. Look, I think it teaches us how to lose gracefully, right, Chad? How to learn from our setbacks. How to, I can remember. I never really understood film.
Like I just watching film.
Yeah. I can remember when I was in 11th grade, I joined a team. They were really good, and my coach. We watched so much film, and I'm just like, we just played the game yesterday. Like, why are we watching the film on this? I don't get it. But there's way more to be learned when you lose or you do something wrong than there is when you win and you did it all right.
Yes.
So I just think, when we lose in sports, we gotta go back to the drawing board. We got to look at the tape. We got to figure out how can we do that thing better. I remember listening, we had Michael Phelps at one of the Windmate Gives, I don't know, what it was, a year and a half ago or whatever it was. And I mean, now he didn't lose very often in the pool, but in practice, he talked about losing against his best time, right? And every time he would lose against his best time, he'd go back to the film and he'd look for those small tweaks that he could make to his business, to his stroke, to his shot, right? So that the next time he got in the pool, right, he wasn't going to make that same mistake again. I think just resilience in defeat, coming back. I mean, I think more than anything, it's like, okay, we lost. I think about my oldest son plays baseball. Like there's not baseball. It's like, sure, you might not lose the game, but you went 0 for 4 that day personally. You struck out every time you were at play. You have a game tomorrow. You got a game 2 days later. You got a game next week. Like, I think just realizing I got to get up, dust myself off, like nothing, there's no better way to learn that than in sports.
You're absolutely right. It translates so well into everything, right? Sales pitch that doesn't go the way you wanted it to go, a hire that ends up becoming a a bad hire that you end up having to remove, or that they don't live up to who you thought they were going to be, a failed marriage, right? I mean, we've both been there, right? In that situation, right? Resilience in defeat. It might not sound like defeat in the sense of, oh, you lost, but it's a
I
defeat,
lost on mine. Mine
right?
was a big
Yeah.
loss.
It's a defeat. And resilience coming through helps you learn from those setbacks so that you did it right this time, right? I did it right this time. We grow stronger and stronger with every loss we have if we're willing to learn and have that resilience in defeat. So
Here, I'll
Bob,
let you take the quote, but I snuck this one in. I think it's our only non-sports quoter of the day.
all right, that'd be Walt Disney.
Hey.
He snuck in Walt Disney for us. The difference between winning and losing is most often not quitting.
Yeah.
Right? Is he on your wall? I see you looking around.
Yeah, oh shit. Oh, did you hear all that? Oh, that was everybody.
Gosh, that was Winston Churchill went down there. Where did Disney go? I lost him. I don't know. Maybe one of my kids stole him. Oh, here he is. Here he is. Look at this 1936 Walt Disney baseball card, Chad. This is the craziest thing ever.
Did he actually play?
No, it's like cigarette cards back then. They used to just put, you buy a pack of cigarettes, I guess, they'd have some kind of a card in there. So this one was just a gallery of kind of famous people in the United States in 1935. But anyway.
Amazing. All right. Number 4 on the list, Bob, I'm going with setting and achieving goals, because to me, that is just important in business and in life, that we always have goals. In sports, you are setting and or achieving goals, right? It could be that solo sport, like I'm running a marathon myself, right? That's going to be the thing. It could be that team sport of we're winning the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup or whatever it is. Sports teach us how to set long-term goals and then break them down into small, manageable pieces, right? Nobody says I'm going to run a marathon and just goes and runs 26 miles. No one says we're going to win the Super Bowl. And you'd hear it. Bill Belichick was the master of this, who was the coach of the New England Patriots when they were the dynasty for a while. He never looked beyond next week, right? They were always asking about, oh, in 2 weeks, you're going against your rival, or the playoffs start in 3 weeks. He was like, no, let's talk about next week's game. He taught us and was a great person showing how long-term goal, no, we broke it down, because if we didn't win this week, it didn't matter. If we didn't win next week, it made it harder to get where we were going. Same thing with marathon training, mileage to get us where we're going. Setting goals is something that we learn in the sports world. And I don't have to explain to our audience how important goal setting is, right? And then Bob, this ties back. This is why I grabbed this one. This ties back to what you just said. How often do we not achieve that goal? So then we have that resilience in defeat, because maybe we did better than other people and we win. Like you said, the baseball team might win, but the player themselves maybe went 0 for 4 that day or made an error during that game. Maybe you didn't hit your goals, even though you still outperformed others, so you feel like you won. Yet you need to have that resilience in defeat that shows up because we're setting and achieving goals.
Yeah, we started doing this with our boys, and I mean, all the credit to my wife, by the way.
Always.
Yeah, like the boys they just started their next season of flag football, the little NFL flag football league, and she sat him down before the first practice, and she was like, "What are your goals for this year, Carter?" And he's like, and she's like, "What do you want to get out of football season?" And he's like, "Well, I want to make a couple friends on the team." So he's got a goal to make 2 friends on the team. What else? He wants to score, I think, 7 touchdowns, and he wants to get 12 flags or something. And so, and we had our first game last week. I don't know if you follow my stories. He scored a touchdown. So he got to go in, and she's got this thing on our fridge, and he come in and he marks down the 1 touchdown, and he got 2 flags. So he marks those down, and she's got it laid out so he kind of knows if he's ahead or behind his pace, right? So, yeah, like I wish I would.
That will help him when he gets into the real world, right? 100%. Setting goals in business, setting goals with friends, setting goals financially for himself. Because here at 7 years old, he's learning goal setting from sports.
For sure.
All right. Bob, I'm going to give Michael Phelps, right? I'll keep going with the quotes here. Michael Phelps says, a goal is just a dream with a deadline. We know it. We've heard it in many different forms like that. Yet Michael Phelps would know what goals are to set them and achieve them again and again. Where do you want to go on the list?
Man, I want to go to probably for me what I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of really good ones on here.
Yeah, number
I don't
5
know.
is
Here's what I would tell you. I don't know that anything else in life has taught me this concept as much as sports. Let's just put it that way. Focus on the present.
okay.
Um, it's just what is there's a saying out there that's like if you're like focusing on the past leads to depression and focusing on the future leads to anxiety, and kind of your natural place that your body wants to focus is kind of on the present. But given that in sports you lose, you mess up, you do it wrong constantly in your rear view mirror, Chad, there are errors and things that could have been done better, right? It
Yeah.
forces you to stay in the present because what is it and this gets at one of the other ones, perseverance, right? And Jordan missed 24,000. I don't know what the number is. Michael Jordan missed a crap ton of shots, right? He missed a whole bunch of game-winning shots where if he would have made the last shot, they would have won. He missed it and they lost. But he still, right, every game had to shoot another shot. And if in his head was the 24,000 missed shots that he'd made before, was the strikeout that he'd done, was the last no I just got on a sales call, Chad, was the lady 2 calls ago that told me to F off and she was going to call the cops if I ever called again. Like if I let all those things in the past create my perception of right now, it can be bad, right? Like I might think I'm never going to make another call. They're all going to scream at me like that lady did.
Absolutely.
The focus on the present in sports especially is necessary for top performance because the past has all of the mistakes are there waiting for you to be reminded why you shouldn't take that next shot. And I think in sports I used to call it I had a teammate, Dave Resch. This guy was irrationally confident, I used to call it. I'm like, Dave, how can you be so confident? Last game you were 4 for 20. And he's like, last game, I don't remember that. He's like, in my head, I'm making every shot. I'm making the next shot. This guy had an irrational confidence because of his focus on the present, right? He was not concerned about what happened yesterday.
Absolutely. And Bob, nothing matters more than focusing on the present. This is Ben's big lesson, right? We talked about it in a recent episode. How many times does Ben say focus on what you can control, not what you can't control, right? And that's being in the present. You can't control about the past. I can't control that I made that mistake. I can't control that person said that. I can't control that I sold that stock and boy, I never should have sold it then or whatever. I also can't control the future, what's coming. I can't control what's going to happen. I can't control what someone's going to do or say or not do or not say. All I can do is control now and the things that are in my world, and it's focusing on the present, just like you have said. It's a key one for all of us. And Walter Payton, one of the greatest football players, said, remember, tomorrow is promised to no one. Focus on today. So I just thought that would be an ideal one for bringing Mr. Payton into the conversation. That's going to lead me to the next one that I want to put on the list, Bob, which is mental toughness. Right? It could have probably been worked into resilience and defeat, yet to me, it was something a little bit different because it's not just about losing. It's about focusing on the present moment because of all the pressure that comes along with it. And you need mental toughness. I mean, I can't imagine what it feels like to be, I don't know, what we all dream of as a kid, right? On the foul line at the end of the NBA championship to win the whole thing, on the mound to be the pitcher to win the World Series with 50, 60,000 people live yelling at you or cheering for you, and then the millions at home watching you. You got to have that mental toughness to be able to stay composed and be able to be under stress and not crack. And Bob, that's when your kid is running around crazy in the store, screaming and making a scene. Do you have that mental toughness, right? That's when your partner and you are at odds on something. That's when you're losing a deal that you've been putting together that's falling apart all around you. Do you have the mental toughness that is learned in the world of sports, whether you've played it or not, it is a key to success there. It is a key to success in our lives.
I think that there, like as I think about coaching my sons on this and the coaching I got on, kind of around this concept, Chad, to me, and I'm trying to think of what other one really goes well with this. Maybe it's the discipline. Like, the reason that you have success in high pressure situations is because of all the preparation you've put in to get to that point.
Yes.
Right. And mental toughness is really, under stress, under duress, under, a lot of distraction. Can I zero in and focus in on getting the thing done that I need to get done? Right. And to me, like, it's a repetition thing. Right. Have I prepared to be in that position where all the eyes, all the pressure, all the stress is on me? And can I perform there? And likely the only reason I get to that place of mental toughness is because I've put all that preparation in to get there. It's like the story of Michael Phelps. You've heard that, where he, on one of his last gold medal runs, he dove into the pool and his goggles got joggled.
Yeah.
And so he literally swam the whole race with water in his goggles. But it was all that preparation he'd put into it, which allowed him in that time of a lot of, I'm sure he was under a lot of stress when he went in and those goggles got joggled. And I'm sure in his brain, he was flooded with like, oh shit. Right. But it was all that preparation that allowed him to be mentally tough to swim that race under those conditions. So this one to me it's hard to manufacture this unless you put yourself into those high pressure positions and you're prepared through a lot of practice to get your desired outcome.
Yeah, Bob, and the quote is almost perfect for what you were saying. It's Paul Bear Bryant, who was, huge college coach way back when. He's known for the houndstooth pattern that he wore, and for people who are wondering who he might be, from Alabama, right, for all those years. And Coach Bryant said about mental toughness, it's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that.
Yeah, we all want to win.
Everybody does, right? It's the will to prepare to win that matters. And that's what you're talking about, doing the work again and again and again in advance, so that when those goggles go off, it's not that he has the will to win and that's why Phelps won. Everybody in that pool has that will. It's that he had the will to prepare again and again. And I will bet you he even trained without goggles sometimes, just in case. So he would practice closing his eyes and knowing how far to go or whatever it might be. All right, Bob, we've gone through 6. We got 3 left on our list.
I'm going to go with just developing your leadership skills, Chad, as my next one. I think that, you play sports long enough, you're going to get into a position, even if you're not the best player on the team, by the way, right? Like, you don't have to be the best player on the team in sports. If you've played sports, this. A lot of times the person that emerges as the leader is not the best person. In fact, there's a book, The Captain Class, and we had the author of The Captain Class come out and talk to us at one point, where a lot of the dynasties in sports, the real leader of that team was not the best player, right? On the early 90s Bulls, it wasn't Michael Jordan. It was Bill Cartwright, who was kind of that leader. But sports, it gives your kids, should they choose to, right? The kids can play sports, Chad, and not step into leadership roles. But if your kid has any kind of anything in them that says, I think they got some leader skills in them, sports is a great way for them to feel that, to know that, and then to start to kind of unleash that little bit of themselves, right? Because there's multiple opportunities always for kids on a team to step in and lead that team, Chad, whether they know that they're doing it or not, by the way.
And Bob, that comes down to the number one form of leadership, in my opinion, and that's lead by example, right? Yeah. So it's the showing up, it's the playing, it's the participating, it's it's not just cheering other people's on, which is great, right? It's just that leadership that shows up from being there and being involved. And I think that's a great point you make. You could go back to so many successful teams over the years, and it's not the person you thought was the captain of that team. You just remember the top player on that team, but they might not have been the one who was actually the one that was the captain or the leader of the team, if they don't officially even have a captain in that league or in that sport or whatever it might be. It's a great point you bring up, Bob. I'm going to give you Jack Dempsey, who was a boxer, right? When it comes to leadership, who says a champion is someone who gets up when they can't. right? Just think about that one for a second, right? A champion is someone who gets up when they can't, and that's leadership, right? Getting yourself back up when you can't. People are going to see that, and they're going to follow you on that journey. All right. I'm going to save the one for you because I love the quote, and that'll be the quote I want to finish with. And it's probably not the one you think on the list. I'm going to take us to the next lesson is perseverance.
Okay. So as I was looking at the two quotes, I saw
one's
the one
by somebody,
but
and
the other one is the one I like to finish with for sure.
Yeah, that's a great finishing quote for this whole thing, right? Perseverance. Sports teaches us to push through and not give up, right? This is part of that mental toughness. This is part of that discipline. A lot of these things kind of Venn diagram over each other in that sense, right? Perseverance is the thing that's going to allow us to achieve our goals. Perseverance is that showing up. It's that consistency. It's that making sure we're there again and again and again when it comes to it. And again, I was running the other day. It rained. So what? Had to do it, right? How many times do we watch a football game in the snow? So what? They got to do it. How many times do we watch baseball players in the rain or in the heat? Or okay, they got to do it. I watched the Tour de France. It rains. They got to do it, right? It's perseverance to show up and push through no matter what.
Can I so agree with all that. I want to take a slightly different spin on this though, because I think like if I'm thinking back to like my best coach I ever had, which it reminds me the importance of coaching. Okay. That's not on this list, but I'm gonna wrap it in here, right? Because okay. Jordan had a coach, right? He had both an on-court coach and a shooting coach. Tiger had a coach. All the great Michael Phelps had a coach. Like all these guys that did it at the highest levels. Billie Jean King had a coach. They all had a coach, right? And to me, what I learned from my coaches were able to get me to understand I had a level of perseverance in me I did not know I was capable of. Like my best coaches, Chad. And so it not only do I realize out of sports, like, yeah, I can persevere. I actually realize because I had coaches that I'm able to persevere more than I even thought I was willing to. And so perseverance for sure. But I think this is a great time to bring in that sports also makes us realize we need coaches. But most of us give them up as we go into our professional lives. Now, not Ben Kinney, not the people that reach really high levels in their sport of business. Yep. They have a coach too, right? Probably helping them realize, hey, you can get past this. You can do more than you think you're capable of, right? So perseverance, absolutely. But it also reminds me that sometimes we need somebody to help us persevere, to help us realize we're capable of more than we might have. We might have quit sooner without a coach, without teammates to lean into and rely on. Like you said, a lot of this stuff, Venn diagrams.
All right. Bob, I want to put you on the spot. Name one of Michael Jordan's coaches.
Phil Jackson would be the
primary one. I figured Phil would be the first one that you would come up with. Phil played basketball.
Yep.
Do you think Phil in his prime could have gone one-on-one with Jordan at all? No. Right? And who was Jordan's college coach?
Dean Smith.
Right. I don't even know if Dean ever actually played when he was younger, but do you think he ever could have gone one-on-one with Jordan?
No.
No.
He had Doug Collins was his coach in the early years with the Bulls. No. Right.
And if I went to a different sport and said, okay, think about who Tiger's coaches were, and we probably can't name them other than his dad, do we think any of them could have actually beat Tiger on the golf course?
But Butch Harmon was Tiger's first swing coach. And no, Butch Harmon was not a better golfer than Tiger.
Right. And the point I want to make in that is a great coach doesn't have to be someone who's even better than you. They just have to be able to help you see where you can go and what you can do. And that's where a great coach came in. And they bring that perseverance to you by being the one on your side who's standing there saying, you can do this when you don't want to. Now, I've been sharing most of the quotes, and I'm going to close out with the last one. Okay. I'm giving you this one because you kind of almost screwed it up and said it earlier.
I did. I was going to use it in a different place. So this is Michael Jordan's quote. I think we all know who that guy is. I've got all his shoes here under my desk. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and this is why I succeed.
Yeah.
perseverance. He's willing to take it again. He's willing to put the work in. He's willing to put himself in a position to fail again, right? To fail
Yes.
a 27th time at the end of the game.
If need be. All right, here we go. I'm going to recap them. Bob, give you the last one, then we'll close this out. Life lessons found in sports. 1 was teamwork. Number 2, discipline. Number 3, being resilient in defeat. Number 4, setting and achieving goals. Number 5, focus on the present. Number 6, mental toughness. Number 7, leadership. Number 8, perseverance. And Bob, the 9th lesson that we can learn from sports that helps in life without a doubt is
adaptability. Right? Like in sports, always. Right? We had a game plan. We watched all the film. We knew that guy always goes to his left. And then we get in the game and holy shit, that guy has a right hand now. And every single time I'm guarding him to the left, he's driving to the right and laying it up on me. I can't show up the next time shaded to his left. I got to square him up center, Chad. I've got to change.
Yeah.
Right. My son's he's transitioning, my oldest boy, from being a catcher to a pitcher. So he's been a catcher his entire life. He does this kind of select program here in Seattle, and they're telling him his best chance to get a college scholarship is to pitch. And so he's full bore this summer, went into pitching. He was always a little bit of a pitcher before, but he's 100% focused on pitching. Full adaptation, Chad. They said, look, here's the course. He thought he was on this course, and they're like, hey, bud, you want to get to where you want to go to college? You got to adapt. I mean, it's just a full similar skills, right? A pitcher and a catcher, but he could have said, Chad, what? No way. I've put in 15 years of being, how old is he? 17. He started when he was 5. I put in 12 years of being a catcher. No, he's got to be adaptable, right? He's got to be adaptable.
You're right, Bob. It absolutely, we have to have it. Sports shows it. There's so many examples, whether it's like you say, change position. How many times does a wide receiver become a defensive corner or something like that in a sport? We also have to change because the game plan, because, oh my gosh, we looked up and, Murphy's Law happened and now we're down by X number and we never planned to be this far behind. Or maybe, our star player got hurt. We have to adapt how we're going to take on that role. So we're all there to carry us to the finish line because we still have a goal to win the ultimate thing that comes along here. Adaptability is so powerful to learn from the world of sports that brings us into our world because nothing ever goes as planned.
Now, hold on. You grabbed the quote like 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago. You're like, I'll do you do that. I'll do the quote, which I'm super jealous of. This is like,
wait, you made me take the quote at one point, so I just kept going with it.
Okay. This might be my favorite quote of all time. This is
absolutely
such a good quote from this guy about this topic.
Save it. Don't give it yet. I'll let you have it. Don't give it yet. We're going to close out with this quote, folks. Okay, we have given you these life lessons. We keep bringing them to you here on the Win, Make, Give podcast. We are looking for you to bring a friend along for the journey because sports lessons teach us teamwork. They teach us that when we are a fan, our fandom can be contagious, right? That's where the word fan comes from. It's fanatic, right? That's why Bob still believes the Seahawks are going to win. That's why Bob believes the Mariners will win and that Seattle will once again get a basketball team. That's why so many of you believe in the Cowboys year after year, and I mock you like crazy, right? That's okay. I got my sports teams. Don't worry. My Maple Leafs have not won in the longest time forever.
The Giants might be the worst team in football right now.
Horrible. We are waiting for Daniel Jones to finally go away so we have a chance. No, it's absolutely right. But we're still fans. And we know you're still a fan of the Win, Make, Give network. So we have other podcasts for you, and we have this one that's going to keep going. So folks, bring somebody along on the journey. Just like we teach our kids to be fans of our teams, teach somebody to be a fan of the Win, Make, Give podcast and share this episode with them. Bring them on the journey for future. All right, Bob, we usually close out the episodes with my saying of, and do good. Today might be one of the first episodes we don't do that.
Oh.
Because we have built up for this quote. So Bob Stewart, I think this quote had to have been the last one that was shared today because there is no lesson probably greater than this quote brings to us.
Now,
So Bob Stewart,
I won't do it in his voice. If I was
Please
better,
don't.
I would do it in his voice. But this is a Mike Tyson quote. It's my favorite quote of all time, Chad. And to end the podcast today, you guys should go out and do good, right, till the next time we see you. But everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, Chad.
That's it, Bob Stewart.